Welcome. This is our, I think, 9th panel discussion, and we're talking today about how to set your children up for financial success. I know every family sort of struggles with this. This is a hard conversation to have. It's hard to know what to do, when to start, how to do it. And so we're really, really excited at Maple to bring you these experts so that we can sort of talk through some of your main questions that you have. My name is Ezzell. I'm the head of community at Maple. We are an app to help families find better balance in the home. We have task management, event creation, chat. We're free. You can download us in the App Store and Google Play. And I'm really excited to talk today with all of the people in this room. So let's get started and go around. Maybe Nikki, you could start us off, and we'll start with Benjamin Talks. Introduce, what is your name? Where do you work? What's your mission? And what does family life look like for you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to chat with you guys today. So I'm Nikki Lucas. I'm one of the co-founders of Benjamin Talks. I have my other half, I guess I should say my other half. My husband might be offended by other half. Carissa as well, the other co-founder of Benjamin Talks. And Chris and I actually met on the trading floor at Goldman over a decade ago, reconnected about 2 years ago, living in the same New York City suburb, raising our young kids, and really bonded over our shared passion for financial literacy and started talking about how we were going to incorporate that in our family life, and did a bunch of research and realized that there was just no specific blueprint for how to start those conversations, and Benjamin Talks was born. So we launched in November of 2020 with a mission to make all kids financially fit, no matter what their circumstances, and help families have those conversations as well, and give everyone a blueprint of where to start.
Wonderful. Chris, do you want to go next?
So I'm Carissa. I'm the other co-founder of Benjamin Talks. The only thing I would add to that is my family life for me looks like I have 3 children, an almost 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So it is quite chaotic, but always fun and exciting. And I would say one of kind of the added benefit of launching Benjamin Talks with a young family is just seeing how involved and how invested the kids are in the business and the mission. And they really are part of our guinea pigs. So Nikki and I, we have 6 kids between us. They're really the guinea pigs who we test everything out on, and they're super pumped, and just getting them involved is really, it's been really wonderful.
Oh, that's so sweet. Patrick, do you want to go next and talk about Trust and Will and what you do there?
Hi, Lauren. I'm Patrick Hicks, and I'm General Counsel of Trust and Will. Trust and Will, we exist to help every family leave their legacy, and we do this by offering a modern way to create your own estate plan. The phrase TurboTax for estate planning really resonates with people, so I like to use that, but that's very much what we do. Easy, simple online access to create documents for you and your family. And so far, we've helped over 300,000 individuals get started with their estate planning since getting started as a company in about 2017. And I've been here for just over 4 years, really helping guide the company through that process. And I'm always excited to talk about estate planning, how it can help you and your family, and forecasting for the future, where you help leave a better legacy for you and your family.
And you also have a daughter, don't you?
I do. I have 2 children. I have a 3-year-old and then a 1-year-old daughter who you may well hear at some point. Fingers crossed, but you may hear. And we're all living out in San Diego today, where it's quite beautiful, and I'm wearing a t-shirt and have the windows open, and not exactly, but close enough. It could be.
Living the good life, and I think
Yes.
we're all sort of in that bucket right now where kids are home. I know both of mine are 3 and 5, so I locked the door, but if at any point I have to go deal with that, I'm just going to put myself on mute. Last but not least, early bird. Caleb, do you want to kick us off here and talk about who you are? Oh, you just on mute.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. And thank you again, Lauren and Maple, for having us and bringing us all together for this really important and exciting conversation. My name is Caleb Frankel. I am COO and co-founder of Early Bird. Early Bird is a investment platform that empowers parents, family, and friends to collectively invest in a child's future, starting at the earliest age. Today, we use a portfolio model. A parent onboards, answers some basic questions, can quickly get recommended a fixed portfolio in a matter of minutes, and then invite their broader network, their broader community to be a part of that child's journey, their journey in investing and building generational wealth for the kids in their life. I'll let Jordan elaborate a bit more. My family life, I am not a parent yet. I am a loving husband and father to a fur child that is 6 years old. And I think in terms of perspective that I will have, and possibly Jordan as well on this call, is thinking about how we were raised and the impact that family and parenting and dinner time conversation with not only our parents, but our broader community can have on how we see the world and the relationship to money, and taking those lessons and those perspectives and bringing them and applying them to how we can help shape the next generation's perspective and relationship with risk and finances. So really, really excited to share that and share our story, and we'll pass it over to Jordan.
Thank you, Caleb. Jordan?
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Really excited to be here. I'm Jordan Wexler, CEO and co-founder of Early Bird. I will say the Early Bird story, I think, all started in a very familiar way that we've all kind of experienced. My beautiful baby niece was born, first baby in the family since me, about 4 years ago. And I found myself totally head over heels in love with this little creature and wasting hundreds of dollars on the most ridiculous stuff you could ever imagine. Little baby Nick shoes she never wore. I love my Funko onesies. Very expensive stuff, and literally just wasting my money. And so this really all started with that problem where I wanted to invest in her and her future and figure out a way that I could really be part of that experience from zero all the way up till she turns an adult, and really have a much larger impact on her life. And that is where the Early Bird story began 4 years ago. And 2.5 years now into actually building the business with Caleb. We are so excited to be working with tens of thousands of American families, really with a core mission of democratizing access to generational wealth. So how do we do that? Leveraging the rails of today, as well as making sure that we leverage the opportunities of the rails of tomorrow, so that all kids have that financial foundation to really build financial freedom.
Thank you. Okay, so now that you know everybody in the room, we're going to kick this off. I know that every single parent wants to see their children grow up to be happy, healthy, independent, capable adults, but sometimes we don't know how to do that when it comes to our finances, and we don't know where to start. We don't know what to teach them and when to teach them. So that's what this conversation is going to be grounded in today, to help parents really understand how to talk about money, things that you should be doing, and setting your family up for sort of lifetime stability when it comes to finances and success. So let's start the conversation at the beginning. You either just had a baby, or you're about to have a baby, you're thinking of having a baby. This is a very exciting but overwhelming time. I want to chat about the first few things that you as a parent need to do to ensure that you're taking care of this new little being. Patrick, would you mind kicking us off? And when you have this little baby, you need to have an estate plan. What does that mean? And how do you ensure that if you pass away, that child is sort of taken care for and provided for?
Yeah, the first thing every new parent wants to do when they're struggling to get any sleep and function as an adult is to think about estate planning. I'm right there with you. I've lived it myself, but it is so critically important. And you have to realize that everything changes with children. And that's true in so many ways, but particularly with your estate plan. Even if you have an estate plan already, you need to update it because you have a new child that needs to be reflected in that plan. And if you don't have a plan, you now have this critically large, massive reason to finally put one in place. So everything changes. And when you become a parent, you need to take a look at your estate plan. And the second thing to realize is it can feel uncomfortable, and you are not alone in that. It's awkward to walk through these worst case scenarios when you're thinking about your life with this child and all these beautiful things it can be. No one wants to stop and think about, well, what happens in all these dark hypotheticals? So if you feel uncomfortable, you're not alone in that, but it doesn't mean that it has to be hard. It can be uneasy, but you can still work through it and have a good result. And that's where trust and will comes in. And our focus is on making this process easier to get you educated about what is important on estate planning. And many people do think estate planning, it's assets. It's where your stuff goes when you die. And sure, it is that, but it's so much more. And the critical piece for new parents is guardianship designations. Who would care for your child if something happens to you, whether that's your death or even something, an incapacity period during your lifetime? You're still alive, but you are unable to care for your child. you can have a plan in place that selects someone to step in and fill your shoes. All of those things are done through a comprehensive estate plan. And as we'll surely discuss, it will also encounter and accomplish some other tasks too, like helping you provide assets, and you can coordinate it with your finances and your life insurance proceeds as well. So it's this key piece of this overall cog of being a parent. And it's not just the one thing you need to do, and you need to do all of these things. And it is overwhelming and it's hard. And I'm sorry, there's no easy way about it, but it's so important to get it started with having a proper estate plan in place. It sets that foundation for everything else to come as part of your financial planning for your child.
Yeah, and I liked your point, Patrick, sort of about evolving your estate plan as sort of your life evolves. You want to make sure that you're revisiting that and making sure that it stays up to date with where you are and what you have and who's in your life. So I like sort of your point when we had talked earlier this week that you said having something is better than nothing. So if you have nothing right now, don't be afraid to take that first step. It can sort of evolve as time goes on.
Absolutely.
Nikki and Carissa, can you walk our parents through what family financial fitness is? How do they go about practicing it? How do they start?
Sure. So we know that parents already have a lot on their plate, and really Team Benjamin Talks is here to help you make your family financially fit. And we feel that you could achieve that through 5 easy steps. And we try and make it through our content and our product. We make it kind of as easy and then digestible as possible. So the first step to family financial fitness is to take the taboo out of money talk. If you ask parents, money talk is the conversation they're least likely to have. They're more likely to talk to their children about, sex, drugs, alcohol, religion, but not money. And we're really here to help you change that. So the first step is to take the taboo out of money talk. And we give tips and tricks of how parents could do that and take advantage of everyday money moments. The next step is to really give allowance. And we view allowance as the best tool to teach financial literacy. Giving allowance is only the first step. The next step is really to teach basic budgeting. But you can only teach basic budgeting once children have access to cash, right? And the easiest way is through allowance. The next step is to practice delayed gratification. Obviously, we know that that is easier said than done, especially in today's digital instant world where kids don't even know what a commercial is and Amazon packages just arrive at your door. Teaching delayed gratification is super important, and it has a long-lasting effect on many aspects of their life, and it really helps them develop as a person. So the more opportunities that we take as parents to teach delayed gratification, the better it is for our children, both financially as well as holistically. And then the last step that we encourage families to address and talk about and make a part of their life is to practice mindful spending. And mindful spending can range from, asking yourself and asking your child, is this a need or a want? Why are we purchasing this? Are we purchasing this because you just had a play date at Sally's house and she has that toy and you just feel, FOMO for not having it? Or is it something that really complements our life? In addition to why we're purchasing something, it's also in what companies are we supporting? Are we supporting companies that have a give back? Is that important to us? Are we supporting companies that kind of align with our overall family values? So that also gets encompassed in mindful spending. So those are the 5 easy steps. Benjamin Talks, like I said, we're here to help you through our Instagram account and our free weekly content. We give parents the tips and tricks and tools to really make those 5 steps kind of as seamless as possible as part of their everyday lives.
Thank you. And I love your point about delayed gratification. I think, this world that we live in where you constantly have access to everything that you need, really affects our children. And my son just yesterday was like, oh, I saw this cool thing that Levi had at school and I want it now. And he was just so focused on, can we go online and buy it? I was like, no, we can't just buy things anytime that you want it. So it's a really hard concept to sort of teach our children, especially as we as parents struggle with it. So yeah. I really like call that out.
And I would also say that, each child is different. And my 3 children are all quite different. My older 2 are much better at understanding delayed gratification. And whereas my youngest isn't so great at it. So also, at Benjamin Talks, we realize that each child and each family is different. And we try and give parents, a variety of tools that they could use, especially so they could cater it to each of their children and each of their children's personalities.
That's awesome. I love that. So Caleb and Jordan, I want to talk a little bit about when is the right time as a parent to start investing in your children, and what are all the different ways that parents can invest?
Yeah, great question. So really the best time to start investing is today, right? Is now and as early as possible. So we are really encouraging parents to think about before a child is born, right? You have a long checklist item of things to do. And one of them is to really start about thinking about the financial future of your child and really how I can start investing in this child. And then of course, after the child's born, 0 to 2 years old is really an amazing opportunity to start building that kind of financial foundation because of 2 core principles. One of them is time horizon, right? When you think about investing, you really think, when do I need this money and how long do I have the capability to invest it? With a beautiful 0-year-old, you're looking at a 20 to 30-year time horizon, which is this wonderful luxury that then correlates to the second piece, which is risk tolerance. Risk tolerance is all about the immediacy. What's going to happen next year? God knows. We're going to see there's going to be a lot of crazy things happening, I think, over the next 1, 2, 3 years. But for a child that is 0 to 2 years old, they, the worries get completely expanded out. So they will go through ups and downs, recessions, depressions, whatever it might be. But if you look at that time period of 20 years, most likely, if you look at the last historical 100 years, you are going to see a great increase to your invested assets. So that's really, I think, step one is just as early as possible. And, I think one of the challenges in investing is that it always feels like, oh, I've kind of missed the boat, right? My kid's already 10. Well, that's really okay. And it's really about still a 10-year-old has 40 years till they're, or 20 years until they want to buy their first house. It's getting them started now and as soon as possible. So that's number one. What to invest in, I think, is really about this idea of diversification, right? That is the most important thing. So there's a couple of vehicles available today. I would say there's 2 main vehicles. You have the 529 plan, which is a tax exempt educational fund, which is really for accredited institutions. So like college generally is the idea there. And they're really strong financial vehicles, but they're state by state and they're backed by large scale financial institutions. So they've been around for a while. They're not widely adopted, but they're very good to explore. The other solution is called a custodial investment account, which is really getting an investment account for a child and the parent's the custodian. And you can literally start investing in your child from day one, which is what Early Bird offers. And then they can use this. This becomes their primary brokerage account when they become an adult. So you're really just getting them started at 0. And then when they become an adult, they can continue to invest and use those funds for anything they want. So those are really the 2 primary vehicles to explore as a parent. And both have great advantages. And we actually think really they should work together. If you believe education is going to be the most number one priority, overemphasize on the 529 plan, if more financial freedom and just whatever you want your child to be able to make those decisions, a custodial investment account, and you can figure out the balance.
Jordan, that was all really good information. I have a little follow-up question for you. I think for a lot of parents, when they think about investing in their children or investing in any kind of account, they're like, well, I just don't have budget for that right now. Can you talk a little bit about parents who maybe are on a tighter budget and what they can do, even just with a little bit of money that they put away, each month?
Totally. I think it's really related to getting started today and knowing that a little can go a long way, right? So it's really about looking at your financials and your monthly expenses. So definitely stuff that Benjamin Talks really gets into great depth on, how do you budget? How do you really think about your overall expense portfolio? And then seeing how much can I take of that per month and put it away. If it's $5, that is better than 0. If it's $10, that's better than 5, right? But the idea that I got to be putting away $100, $500 a month, and I think that's actually where some of these investment calculators create a lot of fear, even though they're trying to show, look, if you invest this much, you'll have that much. And like, you need $200,000 to pay for college. Like that becomes such a far away, large number that's so scary. What we're trying to do is break it down to just like this month I can put away $15 and that is great. And that money's invested and it's in that account. And that is where I'm starting. So there's really no right number in any way. It is doing a deep analysis of where we are at and how much do I feel comfortable being able to put away, knowing that I won't touch that money because that's really for my kid and their financial future.
Yeah. Go ahead, Caleb. Yeah.
I was just going to add on top of that, I think little goes a long way, and you're not in this alone are sort of the two things to really reiterate from for parents. And it does take a village to raise a child, to bring diverse thought and perspective. And so their financial journey is not one that should be a burden you're going through on your own. Everybody has different relationships with money and everybody wants to support and invest in different ways in your child. And it is okay to include them in that journey. And grandparents, and this was sort of my backstory, my broader nest invested in me, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, my friends' parents. And that the more people that said, we believe in you, we're investing in you, the more I, growing up, believed in myself. And that is just as powerful as the financial contributions we're making. And so even knowing that people are voting for you, people are celebrating you, can change the trajectory of a child. So include your community, even with the little contributions that you may or may not be able to make.
I love that. And I'm sorry to like harp on this one question over and over again. Anyone can sort of jump in to answer this. I just want for our listeners, I am under the perspective and the knowledge that was given to me is that starting a savings account for your children isn't the best way to invest in their future. And a big part of that is because of inflation. And so you end up over time actually losing money if you just put the money into a savings account. Can somebody touch on that for like just a second? Because I think that's really important and something that not a lot of parents know.
Yeah. 1,000%. Money sitting in a checking or savings account is in a checking account is even worse than a savings account, but savings account yielding today max 1% return on that money sitting there. And so what we are looking at and thinking and wanting to encourage, of course, is how do you make your money work for you? And money works for you as invested in specific assets. And that can be anything, real estate, public markets, cryptocurrency, whatever area, startups, a lot of angel investing, little checks in there. There's a lot of different areas, but that money is working for you. And if you invest in the public markets and just an S&P 500 ETF, general index fund, you in the last 50 years, you're averaging a historical 9% return on your money. So it is a highly encouraged. And I think one of the challenges that a lot of this is about accessibility, right? 10 years ago, it used to be, well, okay, I got to go to Fidelity. There's all this paperwork. What do I do? I don't know what is going on. Okay, like it's not for me, right? It's not for the majority of American families. But today, with the beautiful boom of fintech and really creating platforms that really simplify a process for a parent or for anyone to really start investing with apps like Robinhood, Early Bird, Acorns, right? There's a lot of different of great platforms out there. I think it's really about that accessibility, that investing and putting your money to work for you is the ultimate goal. So the more we can move away from traditional bank money, putting money into a bank, to investing platforms, you are in a much higher value position.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm sure our listeners do too, because it's a lot of good information and it's really helpful to think about it sort of in that lens, through that lens. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about when we start talking to kids about money. There's so many opportunities for this, and to help parents understand how to teach their children about money, financial responsibility, and understanding what a dollar is worth. Nikki and Carissa, when should parents start talking to their kids about money, and what tools can parents provide their children so that they better understand what money is and how to manage it?
Yeah, so as Carissa mentioned before, every child's different. So you're going to know your kids, some of your younger, your third child might feel a little bit differently, or be more receptive than your first, your oldest child. But generally, as a rule, we say age 5 is a great place to start. And the reason for that is the research actually shows that children can start to understand value as young as the age of 3. And they can have a fully formed relationship with money by the age of 7. And a lot of that is predicated on how money behavior is modeled to them by their parents. So just having those conversations, engaging with them, using those money moments can really go a long way. And as Carissa spoke about, 50% of parents are unwilling to talk to their kids about money. And as we all know on this call, about 2/3 of Americans are not able to pass a basic financial literacy test on their own. So, this is a big problem and we have to start earlier. And so maybe that's a 3-year-old, kind of the sweet spot is 5. And the reason for that is we feel like the best tool for teaching money is allowance. And because just like you can't learn how to play soccer without a soccer ball, you can't learn how to handle money without actually handling it. And so while later on, the goals may be different, in the beginning, they really need to have that interaction to start to understand the value.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Caleb and Jordan, how do we teach our children about the power of compounding?
Sorry about that. Courtesy mute error. Classic. Yeah, I think this is a really important question, and one that for me is, even without a child, really pertinent because as a newly married adult and commingling homes and finances, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have even with your partner. And I think there's incredible apps out there that are solving that problem that we as adults, Nikki, you just alluded to the statistic. That's not financial literacy for children. That's financial literacy of us as parents and adults. And so I think even before or as part of talking to our children about finances and compound interest, we need to talk to each other and adults and talk to ourselves and learn ourselves about what it is we believe in and what the impact investing can have and what investing means to us. And what goals we are setting for ourselves. So I think there's just sort of a step before having an active conversation. And I think that in many ways is what holds parents back from the conversations we have with our customers is I don't feel equipped to have the conversation. And that takes awareness, that takes self-awareness, and that takes exposure yourself to the market in order to have that. I think the second thing that's really important is, and we all appreciate having a sense of ownership and agency when we learn. Without that, learning becomes a lot harder and there's not an outcome that we're driving towards and a part of. So whether that's for you and or for your child, creating that sense of ownership is a critically important step. So, looking at Early Bird or as we partner with the incredible folks at Benjamin Talks or Trust and Will, the actual application of taking the steps to start incentivizes the behavior to further learn as part of that journey. And then the last thing to touch on is really just reestablishing our own and helping to construct a healthy relationship with risk for children. I think naturally risk is a scary term, and we try to avoid risk as much as possible. But in order to explore the powers of compound interest and have compounding impacts on the children in our life, we need to change the narrative around what risk means for us and what risks can mean for them and what ability we have to absorb or take on risk. At Early Bird, we really, really believe that not only are we building generational wealth, but we are creating access to risk and to take risks for the next generation by further understanding and having the capital and knowledge in order to work through some of that risk. And that's really the core tenets of investing.
Thank you. Some children may grow up and not be able to manage their own money, and that's a really difficult situation. Patrick, can you touch on how parents can set up trusts for children with special needs?
Yeah, certainly. And, as Caleb just mentioned, one of the goals you have as a parent during your lifetime is to build that generational wealth. And you still have to have something to to pass that on, to make it multi-generational wealth. It will pass to your children, but you always have that concern of, have you done enough to prepare them? Or maybe there's something that they need additional help. And the good thing is that you can utilize a trust to provide that additional help. And a simple way of doing it, just a 30-second primer on a trust, is it's a vehicle that lets you pass assets to beneficiaries like your children, but you get to set the terms for how those assets are distributed. And so you often see age-based distribution. So maybe these assets are distributed to my child at age 25 or at age 35, whatever you choose. But you can also set up either conditional distributions upon graduating from college, or even aspirational things of, hey, I'll distribute from this trust an amount that matches your annual savings, to kind of encourage certain behaviors that are important to you. But then the ultimate card that you do have, if you have a beneficiary who really does have additional needs, is something called a special needs trust. And these are essentially a type of trust that is set up with very specific terms that allow the assets to be used to help and support a beneficiary without jeopardizing their eligibility for governmental support services, for example. Maybe they have additional needs and they're receiving Medicaid type benefits. Well, you want to ensure that they still get those benefits. They are still eligible to receive those, but you also want to have the trust provide maybe the icing on top, the additional needs that are still met by the trust. And so to set that up properly, you have those core needs covered, but then you can still provide for everything that's really important to you in a way that helps you show what you think is important about investing in financial management, whether it's charitable giving, annual savings, annual income, whatever it's important, you can reflect that in your trust as well. It's a really powerful tool to use for any child, but particularly a child who may have additional needs or just some, really just difficulty sticking with these core principles of financial responsibility that everyone has at times. There are things that are just hard, and providing that just a little bit of nudge in the right direction is sometimes all you really need to help put children on the right path towards their future as well.
Thank you. I think everybody touched on at one point, setting up kids so that the next generation is better off, and so on and so forth. So I want to sort of move the discussion over to that for a second. How do we set up the next generation to have a better financial future than the one before? Patrick, can you talk a little bit about what your advice is for parents to ensure that sort of generational wealth happens?
As an estate planning attorney, I tend to focus on the transfer part of transferring those assets to your children. And obviously you have to build those. And I'm sure we're going to touch on this in just a minute of how you can maybe help build those assets. But from the estate planning perspective, it's about transferring those. And the key with transferring those is to have an estate plan. Every adult needs an estate plan. That's that simple. There's really no exception. Every adult needs an estate plan. Now, what your plan looks like needs to be tailored to your particular needs. It should be customized for you and your family, but you need an estate plan in place. And having that plan in place is what allows you to transfer those assets that you have worked so hard to build to the next generation, and to set them up so that they have maybe a leg up or a little bit of boost in their life, and can put them in a better position so that they have an influx, they have a support system. Well, they can build on that and they can do more for their children, and see that continuing to snowball multiple generations into the future. Many people in a situation, they think about taxes and how do I need to set this up? Honestly, it's relatively simple. Federal estate taxes don't apply to most people right now. The thresholds are incredibly high. You should be aware of it, but it's likely not something that's going to affect you. So more significant to most people is probate and the cost of going through probate after death. And simply having a trust in place. I'm in California, and that's a great example because it's so important to have a trust in place. It can cost tens of thousands of dollars to go through probate. And those are fees that go to lawyers and courts and other costs that are depleting your estate. You've worked very hard to build up this asset pile, and then you're going to pay it out to court fees. $50,000 is not unreasonable in California for probate fees. And that can be saved by spending maybe $1,000 to set up a trust during your lifetime. That's an incredible return. Spend $1,000 now and save $50,000 later. Everyone here is going to say, well, yeah, sign me up for that. But so many people overlook the importance of doing that. So again, have a plan in place. You've built this, you've worked for this, and now the goal is to how do you transfer it? Focus on what you need to do to make that happen.
Thank you. Nikki and Carissa, what advice do you have for us here in terms of sort of setting our kids up so they can better set up their own families?
I think for us, it really goes back to taking the taboo out of money talk. And I know that it seems like we're talking a lot about that. But really, we want to have, we want families to be able to have an open dialogue about money. So whether that's parents or grandparents being open and honest with the next generation about the mistakes they had or information they wish they knew, or when they really struggled with money and what they learned from it, and really having that open dialogue really matters, right? And it also gives kids the confidence to then talk about money, right? So if money becomes part of everyday conversation, a child is going to be more willing to advocate for themselves when it comes to how much they're getting paid and how much they're getting compensated. They're going to be more willing to negotiate a better rate when they're, buying a car or leasing a car. They're going to be more willing to go to different banks when finding a mortgage rate, right? So the more comfortable kids get around money from a very young age, the better off they're going to be in making better money choices for themselves and then the next generation. So once we get kids comfortable about talking about money and learning from the past generations, the better they're going to be to advocate for themselves and to put themselves in a better place financially.
And I liked your comment about sort of the car as an example. When I turned 14, my own mother put me on a budget and I remember hating it. I was babysitting and making cash and she was like, no, this is what we're going to do. In 2 years, you're going to want to buy a car. And I'm like, 2 years from now. And I remember having to come home and I put some money away every time I went and worked or babysat somebody's house. And after 2 years, she went with me to the car dealership and I had enough for a down payment for like a Honda Civic when I turned 16. And I remember how impactful that was.
Yeah.
And it was in that moment that I thought, oh, wow, money actually means something, because this was my first really big purchase that gave me freedom. I actually could leave the house and do things. And that was all because I had worked hard and put some money away for it. So I really like, all your advice on talking to your children about money. It may not be impactful right then and there, but over time it will be.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what you said, focusing on earning is really important for us as well. So it's why do we earn, and then what can we do once we earn? And it's really, we call it from earning to entrepreneurship. And that's another kind of pillar that we focus on a lot at Benjamin Talks, is getting kids to understand the power of earning and then what that could mean for them and their financial future.
Love that. Okay, Caleb and Jordan. Hit me. What advice do you have for setting our kids up so that their own children and families have better financial stability and success?
Yeah. So when we talk about generational wealth, I think something that's really important is that generational wealth is generally considered this generation, right? And what we need to remember is that this is not just about this generation, it's about the generation after that, and after that, the compounding impact that you can have by establishing these right behaviors today. As you asked, what's the right amount to put away? Well, if you're starting $5 as a parent, because that's how much I can afford per month now, well, guess what? Your child now has a little step up with the financial freedom and foundation, and then they'll be able to put away $20, $50, and then that child's child. And ultimately, we will be able to create generational wealth, but it does take time. And it's really establishing the behaviors up front and starting to create and invest so that ultimately the goal for your child is financial freedom first, right? So that when they can go to college, or they can even start their first business, or they can travel somewhere that, expands their mind to learn something new that then creates a new business opportunity and then creates more wealth, because it's all ingrained in exposure and access are really the two core principles that we believe is ingrained in generational wealth, right? Exposure that investing exists, or that I can do this or that, and then access to be able to actually pursue it. So I think the behavioral mindset, establishing that today and starting today, so that you know that your child's in a better situation with achieving financial freedom, but their child's child will really be able to start building that true generational wealth.
And I would add on top of that just a theme, and I'm curious actually to hear. So we focus definitely at Early Bird much more on new parents, expecting parents. Nikki and Carissa at Benjamin Talks focus a lot more on parents and how they have conversations and open and honest conversations with their kids around finances. But one really important lesson I unfortunately learned at the ripe age of 28 years old was the difference between labor and capital. And for so long, I prioritized and thought about the means to creating wealth for myself and for my family and for their family was through labor. And I did not understand that there was separate but related and tangential component of capital. And I think in the world that we're living in, with more access and more exposure to tools to create and establish capital, that conversation of the difference and how to leverage those, how to use those two levers to your advantage is a critically important lesson that I'm not, as a potentially new parent in the future, equipped yet to have that conversation. But I'm curious if I'm allowed as a panelist to ask a question over to sort of Nikki and Carissa. Is that a conversation point that you all encourage parents to have as well?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, aside from just the earning component of it, which of course is important, I think, and one of the reasons we love what you guys do at Early Bird is the investing component and allowing your money to work for you is kind of that next step, right? So that's what's going to be, the next focus after you have that foundation. And again, to Jordan's point, that's really what becomes empowering, because when you're having these conversations and you have the foundation, knowledge is power. You're able to have, financial empowerment, but then the next step is financial freedom. And obviously you can work really hard for that, but another way is the investment side of it. And so what you guys are doing, obviously, and giving people access to that as well is, is a huge component.
Did that answer your question, Caleb?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Okay.
I just always love their perspective.
Yeah.
One funny one for Patrick that we've been playing with for a campaign is every baby should be a trust fund baby. That's the one that we've been, it definitely goes both ways, as there's definitely some interesting connotation there, but of course it really is it's a real thing. And, I think you guys are doing an amazing job with what a trust really means, and it doesn't have to mean a bratty, rich kid. It's really just doing the right steps necessary. So we are really aligned there.
Yeah, I would just add on that something that we talk about, and when we keep saying take the taboo out of money talk, it's not to make the kids money obsessed. I think a lot of parents have that fear that, oh my gosh, if we talk about money, they're going to become obsessed with it, and that's so inappropriate, and it's not, PC and all of these things. And it's really just, again, giving them that empowerment and that knowledge, so that no matter what path they're choosing, whether they're going to be an investment banker or they're going to be an artist or a poet, whatever it may be, they know and have all the tools for that journey. And I think, that, is something with even just that slogan, you're like, that makes a lot of sense, but it's also, again, the whole topic that makes the money uncomfortable sometimes. And I think we're getting there, and we need to just, the more accessible it is and the more accessible this information is, and investing in all of these topics, the better that will become. But it's still, we're in this journey now for sure. And we're, hopefully the mindset will continue to shift.
Yeah, I actually see a question that sort of relates to everything we're talking about, that Caroline asked, what types of things do you talk about in a monetary way for kids under 10? So really, we've mentioned this a little bit. We take it. So whether that's talking about an Amazon packaging just appearing at the door and saying, well, that just didn't fall out of the sky. We had to pay for it. We paid for it from the money that we work for, our credit card, money from our credit card zips through Amazon into the Amazon account. The package appears at our door. To, what are we budgeting for? Maybe mom and dad are forgoing date night this month because we're going to save for a family vacation that we could enjoy as a family over the summer. To really, our kids well, why is this road so bumpy? And we could say, well, when we pay taxes so that the roads aren't so bumpy, or we pay money at a parking meter, and then that money goes to taking care of the roads. So we really, when we talk about money and talking about it with our children under 10, we relate it to their everyday lives and make it very concrete for them. And even at Benjamin Talks, we even talk about, money current events, and whether those are, business or finance related current events that are happening, we make sure that we do it with the child in mind. So when we highlight companies, we may highlight Roblox because it's relatable for kids. And we could talk about, well, what is Roblox? What is their business model? What are they doing? What's going on in the news with them? So we always think about money talk in a way that could relate to kids and make it very tangible, but we don't just focus on material things per se. We do actually touch upon taxes and insurance, and we definitely go into investing, but we do so in a way that's relatable to them. I hope that answered the question. If Nikki, you want to add anything to that?
That's great.
And thank you for catching the question, Caroline. Let us know if it's not answered, but I think that Carissa did a really good job there. We have one more question for all of our panelists. I want to make sure, she said that was perfect. Thank you. Good. We have one more question for all of our panelists. I want to make sure we give you enough time. We're going to start with Patrick. I want to just sort of open it up and let you all give any financial advice that you want that you wish you would have received. So Patrick, can you give our listeners today some financial advice that you wish you would have been given?
I think this applies in the financial context, but this rings true in a lot of areas of life, is that perfection is not the goal. And from my perspective, that really manifests in a couple different ways. And the first way is that you are not expected to know it all right now. There's not an expectation that you have to be an expert to get started. You will likely face some times where it's new and unknown and you don't know what to do. And that's okay. It's okay not to know, but that shouldn't stop your progress. There are some incredible resources available to help you today, more than there have ever been before. And just look at this call, Benjamin Talks and Early Bird. They are fantastic resources to help you educate yourself and empower you to get you started to achieving your goals. You don't have to know it all. You can use these resources and these tools. And at Trust and Will, we've developed a Learn Center just for people to learn about estate planning. So you don't even know where to get started. Well, just read an article. For many people, they're surprised to find out how easy this can be. And once you get started, it's really easy to keep going. It's that very first step that's so hard for so many people. So take advantage of those resources. Don't feel that you have to be an expert and that you have to know it all. And educate, empower, get comfortable, and to move forward. And the second way perfection can kind of be your enemy is don't wait for perfection. Don't put off taking an action because it's not perfect. Get started with something. Unfortunately, many people do, especially with estate planning, they put off creating an estate plan because they don't know what the best choice is. Who's the best person to watch my child? Honestly, I don't think there is an answer for who's the best person. But the worst choice is likely no plan in place. So have something in place. Get someone that you're comfortable with. Make a good choice today. A good choice is better than no choice. You don't have to wait for perfection. Get something started today. Put some plan in place, and you can and you should come back over time to update and revise your plan and hopefully make it better as your life changes. Your plan evolves with your life, but don't wait to get started. Don't wait to say, I don't know how to start. I don't know what the perfect outcome is, so I'm not going to do anything. That's the wrong choice. Don't let perfection be your enemy.
Thank you. That was really, really good. Nikki and Carissa, what advice would you give that you wish you would have gotten?
Yeah, I think, piggybacking off of Patrick, definitely get started. I think also, and we obviously talk a lot about having these open conversations and open dialogue. And I think one way to kind of even elaborate on that is using your extended network and your nest as a kid. And so obviously with Early Bird, they're bringing other people along for that journey. And I think I wish that earlier on, I knew about finance doesn't even mean I necessarily knew about personal finance. I should have asked more questions of all of those people involved in my life. And so, educating yourself, obviously super important, but ask, have those conversations with people, whether it's a basic, financial foundational pillar, or it's something more complicated that you're trying to learn. Just have those conversations and include your extended network and your extended nest as you're growing up.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Carissa, do you want to give your advice?
Sure. I mean, I think two things, and they don't necessarily speak to just personal finance, but I think that it kind of all ties together. One is learn to advocate for yourself early. So know your worth, right? So if you feel that you're not getting compensated as you should, be confident enough to advocate for yourself and educate yourself to make sure that your assumptions are correct. And if they are correct, be able to have those conversations. And if your assumptions are not correct, the education should then make you feel okay with how you're being compensated. And the second thing is when you have imposter syndrome, and I think this can relate to everything, right? So it could even relate to like, okay, I'm going to set up this investment account for my kid, but like, I don't really know what the hell I'm doing, right? It's being able to identify that. And when you identify that, say like, is this really true? Is this like a valid concern? And if it is, how can I educate myself to make myself feel better? Or is it not a valid concern? And maybe I do have all the tools I need to make these choices and to go with it. So those are the two kind of pieces of advice that I think people should think about.
Wonderful. Thank you. Caleb, do you want to go next?
And as expected, I was on mute again. Yeah, I think mine ties back to the previous comment I had on the difference between, the lesson that I shared on labor versus capital, and the importance of understanding that investing is more than just investing money in a child's financial future or investing money in our own future. We're all on this call, or many of us are on this call, not just the panelists, the audience here. You are investing right now by being on this call, because you are investing your time and your energy and your focus to create a difference in your child's future. That is already the first step. And you should feel proud in the fact that you have done that, and you take step by step the opportunity to begin to invest more, whether that is more time or more emotion or more energy or more capital in the things that you believe in. And children around you will start to, and people around you will start to soak those lessons and that energy up, and you will feel more confident and comfortable talking about it. And I think, again, most of my personal journey was I had access to capital, but I didn't understand the power of it. I have started to, through my adult journey and through a great friendship with Jordan and the opportunity to start a fintech company, afforded myself the opportunity to learn and invest my time in myself and in future generations within my family with impactful lessons that I'll be able to impart on them. And so I just think it's really important to expand our thinking around what it means, how scary it is to invest, because we're all already doing it because of our love for the children and the impact we all hope to make on their life.
That was fantastic. Thank you. And Jordan, last but not least.
Yeah, all these are just wonderful bits of advice and information. I will leave it with, don't be scared of the future and embrace it. I think we are in such a fascinating, monumental shift in where the world's going, and it's accelerated, but this all began, if you look back the last 100 years, radio, TV, Web 1.0, Web 2.0, social media, everyone's always hesitant, scared. And of course, now we have something called Web 3, blockchain technology is starting to be a core factor in what we're looking at, and cryptocurrency. And instead of saying, oh no, opt to really understand that your child that is 0 to 5 years old is a digitally native child that literally will grow up knowing so much more about cryptocurrency and literally will be using cryptocurrency for God knows what, that we are still going to look and go, what the hell is going on? And I think it's the parents that really accept and acknowledge that, look, this is happening, right? Like it or not. And now how can I make sure that I'm leveling up my own knowledge and I'm capitalizing on the opportunities that are absolutely in front of us, and really just, leading without fear, but with curiosity, I would say is a really big thing.
Thank you, Jordan. I don't know if I get to have an answer here because I am not a financial person, and that is not my background. But the biggest thing for me was I was told, have a date with my money. And I didn't really know what that meant until I got a little bit older. And once a month, my husband and I sit down at the table and we go over our finances and we look at what are the subscriptions that we're paying for. And sometimes we catch things that we're not using anymore, and that helps us save money. We look at sort of as a pie chart, where's our money going every month? And is there a way to like make it more narrow? Or is there maybe things that we're spending money on that we don't have to spend money on? So just sort of that constant check-in. I know it's only 12 times a year, but it's really, really helpful for us to feel like we have a little bit of control and a lot of understanding around what we're spending, why we're spending it, when we're spending it, et cetera. So for us in our relationship, that's very, very helpful. And at some point, we'll probably bring our kids on into those conversations when they're old enough. They're little now, so they wouldn't understand, but I'd like to instill that in them, that it is totally normal and you should sit down and have a date with your money. So
or they'll include you on their date with money from the video games that they're playing and the digital assets that they've earned, and you'll start to learn as well.
Yeah, or they'll just sit down and say, so it looks like you're saving some money, can I have some of that? Thank you all so much for coming. I hope this was really insightful. I felt like I learned a lot. I really appreciate our panelists' time. Like, it was amazing to have you. We did record this session. So what I'll do is I will edit it and then I'll send it out to everyone so that you have it and you can share it on your own channels. Early Bird, Benjamin Talks, Trust and Will, thank you so much for coming today. I hope everybody has a wonderful long weekend. Thank you. And we will see you all soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, bye.